One I want to look at in particular is identifying the client's interest that you are trying to protect. And once we've thought about that, to then go on to think, well, okay, what's the best way of protecting that interest? Is a notice or restriction the best way of doing it? Then, as I've mentioned, some of these more recent sort of originally COVID related changes, practice changes, and some of the risks around them, and you know, the pitfalls, which of course fundamentally and ultimately could result in your application being cancelled. But what I just want to do now for the sort of closing moments of this webinar is just really to point out some much more recent, quite sort of quirky changes that have come about really in the last sort of couple of years, as I say, really as a direct consequence of COVID, which, as I mentioned at the beginning, have been sort of introduced by the Land Registry as a response to COVID, but lots of them haven't been, revoked or removed as we've sort of moved out of lockdown. So the Land Reg has now agreed that, or confirmed that, it will accept deeds for registration signed using the Mercury signature process or signed using witnessed electronic signatures. Now, all of this stuff used to be, until very, very recently, contained in Practice Guide 8. The Land Registry has now stripped all this out because electronic signatures in particular, as a means of signing a deed, has moved on sort of fairly rapidly. And the Land Reg has now produced Practice Guide 82, which at the time of recording is the most recent and the latest practice guide. And the Land Reg now refers to these signatures as conveyancer certified electronic signatures. And whilst I think in a matrimonial context it's reasonably unlikely that you will be faced with having to deal with a transfer signed in this way, one of the most fundamental points is, if you are acting for the prospective transferee of a transfer of registered land, I think it's very important these days that you establish how is the transferor going to sign the transfer. Because over time, more firms will have software packages available that enable transfers to be signed using conveyancer certified electronic signatures. But Practice Guide 82 sets out very specific requirements that the Land Registry has.